Greetings, brothers and sisters. Got a bunch of stuff to get to here. Um, Prince William called Meghan Markle's that bloody woman after royal funeral. He's not a big fan of the Markles. Over here, powerful, forced a cultural reckoning, compelling, devastating, heartbreaking, framing Britney Spears. Britney is, they're going full Britney. And then one of my I think it was on Instagram, one of my friends on Instagram, Kim Kardashian, unrecognizable with new eyebrow look. That's not Kim. And so this was also covered by Yahoo News, which I noticed this morning. But it says here, I don't know if she doesn't have anything that she's saying, but she looks like an alien. Like, that's not a human face. Like, that's not a natural human face. I mean, I guess she's bleached her eyebrows or something. But I said this in a recent video. I don't know if I have a picture of it, but a recent video I was talking about her face is no longer human. They've had so much plastic surgery, they look like they're synthetic, and then whatever they're doing to, like, what is that? Like, it's just, that even makes it worse. That, like, just weird stuff. It's gone beyond human. And does anybody say anything here? Obsessed, blonde ambition, stunning, OMG, so beautiful, sick. You guys don't notice she doesn't look human. And so, speaking of the non-human, security robots expand across the U.S. with few tangible results. This robot here has 360-degree cameras on it. It has the ability to read license plates and call 911. And so it's just basically a spy bot. They have it here like the Westland Real Estate Group bought Liberty Village, a sprawling 1,000-unit apartment complex on the northeast edge of Vegas. And now they're getting a lot more 911 calls. I guess there's a lot of gang activity and dog rings and prostitution. They launched these robots into the fray. Of course, we saw this robot too, the dog one. But these things are, they have the ability to record everything that's around them, both audio and video. And these are the beginning of Robocop, right? Where it starts off where these things are just observing everything. And who knows what other technologies are available to them, maybe being able to track you and identify you on the street based on your cell phone or whatever it is, right? And so, Robocops are coming to a city near you. Jennifer speaks out about the self-torture Matthew Perry experienced on the set of Friends. The self-torture. So Matthew Perry admitted that he often felt extreme pressure to make sure all of his jokes landed. To me, I felt like I was going to die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure. And so Jennifer Aniston said, I didn't understand the level of anxiety and self-torture that was put on by Matthew Perry, if he didn't get a laugh. And the devastation he felt, it makes a lot of sense. They were getting like $1 million an episode or something, right? It said here, he added that if he did not hear the live studio audience laughing, it would lead to sweating and convulsions. Boy, he had it so rough. He was such a tortured person with, he didn't get a laugh, right? He'd start sweating and have convulsions. They didn't laugh at my joke. Trump vents same old election gripes and return to rally stage in Ohio. Here we go again. It's the crime of the century, calls the Democratic vote for president that put Joe Biden, not him, in the White House. So he's having rallies. He had a big rally in Ohio, big turnout, and the media is setting in on him because, you know, he's not letting this thing go, and we'll see how this all plays out. I know there's a lot of people thinking that he's somehow it's gonna be reversed, but, you know, that would only be if they planned it that way. Hilaria Baldwin reflects on 5 pregnancies, miscarriages, and past self-abuse. This is her Instagram page. The top row of her pictures, there is a picture of her breastfeeding her baby, which is, you know, wonderful. I mean, it's good to breastfeed, but I don't know why you got to put a picture on Instagram. And I've talked about this before. Like, who's taking this picture? There she is with the ghoul whisperer, Alec Baldwin. He's holding a baby. They're making out. And who's taking this picture, right? It's a very, you know, they have a photographer come in and take these pictures. You know, I've talked about that before. Some of these other ones, you know, they're all staged and posed. And like this one, who's taking this picture? I mean, they have like a photographer come in and work on this Instagram thing. A lot of these pictures are ones that don't happen naturally. Like this one. They're sleeping. It's in black and white, and, you know, he's wearing his watch. It's a posed picture, and just strange. Like, who's watching them sleep? So it's very strange, right? So this is the post that's being pointed out by page 6, and she's doing some sort of belly dance here, filming it in the bathroom mirror while holding her newborn baby. And there's a purpose to this, which she says, think of your abdominal sides as a cage that are knitting together at the midline of your belly button. Yeah, I don't really want to do that. That sounds like a lot of extra work. Zipping up your center, this is annoying. Zipping up your center, pulling your front body towards your back body, belly towards back. This is an act of core ab engagement. Then have fun. Move. This doesn't sound fun at all. How are you going to have fun? Then have fun. Move from side to side, front to back. I love this because it effectively strengthens the muscles from deep inside. This is an old trick from people who are, you know, white and have no Spanish ancestry, but claim they're Spanish and they grew up in Boston. After 5 babies out of my body, 3 chemical pregnancies. They have chemical pregnancies? I didn't even know that. 1 miscarriage at 9 weeks, 1 at 4 months, and a round of IVF resulting in Mary Lou. My body has gone on quite a journey for the family we have. I've done my fair share of self-abuse. I'm not even sure what that means here. ... But through much work on my mental health, I've learned to be grateful for her and her support when we grow to love our changing forms. I don't even know. Is she talking about is herself? Loose skin and all that we honor on our full life's journey. I think she's talking about her body here. I've learned to be grateful for her. I think she's referring to her body and support her. And so she's talking about her body like it's a separate entity, which is weird. And there's some things about exercise, you know, just weird. Just a lot of weird stuff going on at the Baldwin residence. So one of my commenters sent me this, asking me if I had played this game, which the answer to that is no. But it's called Deuce X, and this happened.
Forget it was the NSF that C4'd the statue in the first place. UNATCO's here to put the pieces back together.
Ask me, I think the government did it. They want people to think the NSF are terrorists.
I think the government made the plague on purpose to get rid of the population growth. Number 1, in 1945, corporations paid 50% federal taxes. Now they pay about 5%. Number 2, in 1900.
So I guess you can go look this up for yourself, but this was some truther stuff being put out in this video game, Deuce X. The title of the video is Deuce X Dropping Red Pills, and you can search that on YouTube if you're interested in more. So if you look at today's culture, if you look at the modern human being, what's going on with human beings on a whole, like holistically across the globe, and then specifically if you watch the news, I mean, there's two different things here. You watch the news, you engage with celebrity culture, famous people culture, rich people culture, whatever it is. And what's being presented to you as normal human behavior, the kind of behavior that these famous people, whatever they are setting as an example. Then there's another layer of social media personalities, and those are those people that are being pushed out there as famous YouTubers, famous so-called influencers and things like this. And then you interact with people, you see people in the store, Walmart's a good example of this, or your grocery store, and you're observing, are other people wearing masks, and what are other people doing, strangers that you just see on a daily basis. And then you have your people that you have various people that in real life, and you're in the real world, IRL, like that's a saying now, IRL, in the real world. It wasn't a saying, I don't know, certainly before the internet, back in even the early 2000s, but right now kids are saying all the time, oh, did that happen IRL? Was that in the IRL? In the real world? And so you have, in your real world friends, your people you work with, you're observing how they are, and then you have your cyber friends, your social media contacts and people. And you can observe with them what affects the news, media, and celebrity culture and the agenda that's being pushed is having on them. That has, made its way into real people's lives. It's come from the celebrity culture, from influencers on YouTube, and, whatever stuff they're getting in their school system, right? All these things that are being taught to them. There's this new, critical race theory or whatever it might be, things that you hear in the news, and then how it affects normal average everyday people, your friends and family. Like when you talk to your friends and family and they start saying things that you don't agree with, that they got it from the mainstream culture, like where it comes from, the agenda. Now you see it show up in your family and friends' lives. And so that's where it really affects you. And so when it starts affecting people on their interpersonal level, right? Like everybody having to wear masks, that affected everybody. Everybody having a social distance, having to wait outside a store because there was a capacity limit because of COVID, and the COVID rules or whatever was going on. I remember like last summer, my wife and I just standing outside a Home Depot because they're only letting 50 people in a giant store. And we're just standing outside. I mean, there's not that many people in it. It's like the middle of the day, right? And we're like, 5 feet apart, and they had these wooden rails, and you had to, wait a certain time. It was pre-mask. Like you didn't have to wear a mask, but they were only letting in 50 people at a time, and everyone was supposed to, stay far apart. And then it moved up to 100 people, and then they got rid of that altogether. And there was really not that many cases then, but that was when they started to push, they changed the way that they were testing more people. Remember that in the summer last year, they were really trying to screw Trump over. So they started to test more and more people. Like the test went up from 200,000 to 1 million a day. And it was like, wow, we got so many more cases. Yeah, because you're testing more people. But they didn't divulge that scientific fact. That's why it was bogus science. And they were pushing all this fear, saying there was an explosion in the amount of coronavirus cases because they were testing 5 times as many people. And there was only like twice as many cases because it was the summer. Remember, they baited Trump into that. Like they said to him, they kept on saying, oh, he's not testing enough people. He's like, oh, we'll test more people than anybody. And then they did that, and they said, oh, look at all the cases he's failing. and they baited him into it. And so, you see what's being pushed in terms of the agenda, and then just how messed up people are in general because they're not having normal lives. We've been so far removed from growing our own food and interacting with people now with the internet, and how much time people spend on the internet and all those things. And then the Hollywood agenda and the, whatever agenda is being pushed now, this fake liberalism and fake woke stuff and all these things that are being pushed out there. And personally, it really hasn't affected me at all. Like, it's, very slight in terms of, I don't interact with that many people. And I mean, I've had to adapt to, minor level things here. But in terms of my day-to-day basis, if I didn't do this, if I didn't make these videos, I would know about most of these things. Like if I didn't go on the internet and comb through the mainstream news articles and videos and see what the celebrity culture is doing and, sport level stuff, it wouldn't really affect me on a personal level. The people that I know are only, mildly affected by this. I mean, it's, like 2 degrees of separation, right? The people I directly interact with aren't really affected very much at all by this. And then, they know of people. Like people I know of people that are having, some of these issues and are being influenced in their opinions and what's inside of them by all this. And then there's, heartfulness people I know who are, buying into this stuff, people who are liberal, but I don't really know them. Like I know of them. They're my friends on social media. Every once in a while I'll, scroll through Facebook and there'll be some of this stuff, some of this agenda being pimped out there by my Facebook friends. But they're my Facebook friends, right? It's, people I might have known at one time, haven't seen in years or whatever it might be. And so for me personally, I don't really, I feel it, and I know there's an effect to all of these things. I mean, I had COVID. I was, just getting better from it last year. I mean, it's, taken me a year. I feel good now, but it's taken me a year to sort of get over all of it, like just the after effects. And it really ravaged my body, and I wasn't doing well. And I'm taking a shit ton of supplements and things like that. But I feel, better. Like I feel better than, before. Actually, my energy level has gone up, and I'm able to do a lot of work on the farm and things like this. And so that affected me, whatever that was, right? And it sucked. The level that I had it definitely was not something I enjoyed going through. But that is whatever it is. But in terms of the overall changes that have occurred, negative changes, and again, not just your opinions about watching what you see on the news or, what's going on in, like, say, Portland, Oregon, or some other place, but in one's personal life and personal existence and day-to-day type of activities, the amount of, effects that you're seeing personally, negative effects of the declining system, right? And so that has to be at least somewhat of a priority for people to think about. Not just think about, but in terms of, like, how does one carve out a life for themselves? Because this is what the future is going to be. It's obvious which direction the wind's blowing. And there's 2 things that I am, personally pretty sure about. Each person has to assess this for themselves. But the things that I am sure about is that the economy and the system has crapped out, that there has to be changes. You can resist the changes that the powers that be are pushing on all of us. You can resist them. You don't have to, go along with all of them, at least for now. You can push back against them, but things can't stay the same. The people that, I call the controllers, they can no longer provide for you the lifestyle that you think you're entitled to and that you think you were promised. You were promised. I mean, this is a broken promise on their side, but they are not going to fulfill their commitment to your lifestyle, to things that you think that you were given or you're you were guaranteed as being an American or whatever else, that your lifestyle is going to change one way or another. Whether you agree with or go with the, powers that be and try to preserve some of it, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to preserve their power and their control and just change what you have, right? Get you to accept a lesser deal. And you could say, no, I'm going to reject that deal. And you can do that, but, it's not going to make a difference when you show up at the grocery store and there's no food or there's no gas to drive your car. Gas is, $1,000 a gallon or whatever it might be. Hyperinflation or whatever, changes that are going to occur, whether there's a complete collapse of the system or the controllers, this whole thing about renting everything. There's going to be probably, based in information that's been put out there in media and TV and movies and things like that, but also even in the UN's own documents. The UN wrote that World War Z book. It's like sort of a comic book about a zombie apocalypse. I mean, by the UN, right? And it later was bought by Brad Pitt. There was a bidding war between Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt for the rights to the movie. And Brad Pitt, outbid him. And he made a movie, kind of sucked. I mean, it was not a good movie. But there are three choices in both the book and in the movie. There are the people that are, going with the UN and the system. They're the normies. They're the people who are fighting off the other two groups, which are the zombies or what's called the Rebs. And the Rebs are people who didn't want to live within the, confines of the New World Order. And so they're out there living on their own off the grid. And in the book, they're considered worse than the zombies, right? The Rebs are, many people that would be considered truthers now. And so the choice might come up in the future whether you're going to live outside of the system. You're not going to have a chip in you, or you're not going to have a phone, and you're not going to be a citizen, or, you're not going to be able to be a part of what we now consider civilization. You'll have freedom, but you're going to be outside the confines in some sort of Mad Max, like Escape from New York type of situation, where the city is the good thing in the future, or the city is the civilization, and they wall it off, and everybody outside of the city is considered a non-person, right? And you can see that those lines are starting to be drawn now in terms of the government and the mainstream media for people who don't go along with the agenda. And so there's going to be choice points coming in the future, and living outside of the system isn't going to be bliss, right? You might have freedom, you might consider yourself a patriot, but there's going to be a lot of, there's not going to be a government, there's not going to be, and you say, all right, governments suck, but then you have thug rule. Like the government will be thug rule, right? It will be, whoever has the most firepower and the most, gang-like army will rule the day. And so it's not like that's going to be so much better or really any different than the civilization aspect, which is controlled, and, there's more perks and there's more pleasures and there's more privileges, but still less than you have now, right? Living in some sort of UN Agenda 2030, whatever it might be. Agenda 2030, renting everything, not owning anything, being packed in small living quarters, all these types of things, and not having the abundance that you've become accustomed to. And so, what it becomes right now is carving out some sort of a life that is, at least acceptable, the best that people can do in the future, and also being able to adjust oneself to becoming more spiritual, because life isn't going to be as good, right? Life isn't going to be as easy. Life isn't going to be as enjoyable. And it's always harder to go from riches to rags than go from rags to riches. Going from rags to riches isn't all that it's cracked up to be. People think, oh, it's so great, but people who go from rags to riches often suffer lots of stress and psychological issues, and they're always afraid of losing what they have, because what they're used to is rags. And the riches is, something that they have, but they're not, they're always suspicious of it. And that's hard. So it's not like that's some easy or great thing. People think, oh, you went from rags to riches. Yeah, you're a little bit more grateful for your riches, and, it's good to have that perspective, but still, it creates psychological instability. And sometimes, people never get used to the riches because all they've ever known, the deep impressions come from being in rags. But when you come from riches and you don't, know anything, you can't do anything, right? And you're very limited in your understanding of the world, and then you go to rags from riches, it's very hard. It's like, you take these people and they're stripped of their wealth and their privilege and their titles and all these things. And that's really hard for, even, devastating, and very few people can do that. Very few people can go from riches to rags in a way, because they're not connected to God. And like I said, they don't have any skills, and there aren't, developed anything inside themselves, character qualities, and they don't have what inside them, what they need, because they're disconnected from God and their soul to endure such a switch. Like the first master of the heartfulness system, Lology, his family went from riches to rags. Like he grew up in a wealthy family when he was a young person, then everything was taken away by a British Raj from his dad. His mom died, and he was thrown into like soul-crushing poverty. And from that, he was able to reach the real goal of human life. I mean, it's just an extraordinary accomplishment on so many levels, and then create what's now known as the heartfulness meditation system. And so that's an example of somebody who was, they had the inner, development and soul capacity to go from riches to rags. But such cases are rare. But anyways, the point of this, this part of the video, the narrative, is that, things have gotten really weird and crazy. Like I just see it on a daily basis. And it's, starting off with the people at the top, at, the top of the economic system. They're not the most evolved, but they're the people that are, considered elite, and the people who have sort of made it, and they're considered successful, and they're the examples. They're the, they're being pitched out there as this is what the system can do for you, right? This is the, people who have made it. They're the, the show ponies, right? And they're weird. It's strange. Things are getting stranger. Barely functioning, clueless, not even looking like human beings. And, things are just getting stranger and weirder. And it's going in that direction. And I don't know when it's going to stop. When people are going to revert to being more simple and humble and, connected to God and connected to their family. I don't know, when that's going to happen. I want to just go back a second. I said there was two things that I, know personally. The first one was that the system is, it has to collapse economically, financially, because of the debt, because of the, all of it. Like it can't be kept the way it is. And the first part was because of the debt and the, economic system itself. It isn't just a whim of the people that I call the controllers. Like they can't sustain American life and, the wealthy people, the not, wealthy people, but the upper middle class, and they can't sustain personal car ownership and home ownership and all these things, right? They can't, it's not just about them losing control. They can't do it anymore. The system is crapping out, the economic system. But the other piece to this is there is a spiritual movement that's saying enough, like this has to go. And so both of those things, the spiritual one, the people, the souls, the higher developed souls that are managing this planet, I mean, whatever they want, whatever God wants, whatever, has to happen, the end of the Kali Yuga, all those types of things, that is making the system collapse. So those two things, the two power brokers, the people that control the planet, can't sustain and maintain the system. The system itself is crumbling, and the divine forces want to bring in an evolutionary movement. And the heartfulness meditation is what the organization is called, that is, bringing this movement, which is it's not an organizational type movement. It's coming from the divine, right? It's not a materialistic thing. It is divine energy being transmitted to uplift humanity. And the Heartfulness organization is the face of that, right? That's how you get into, contact with it. But it is there. It is coming down for everybody, whether they've heard of heartfulness or not. People's hearts and their souls are absorbing this energy, and they are, hearing the call. Your soul is hearing the call. And so it's beyond the organization in the sense that everybody's on some level picking up on this. There needs to be a change. And so change is coming, no matter what, right? And the world is going down, spiraling down, but people's souls and their hearts and their spiritual energy is rising and going inward, and they are developing at a very rapid rate. And so these two, it's like a tug of war in a sense between the higher nature and the lower nature. And then, on a materialistic level, you have to carve out some sort of acceptable life so that you can make this spiritual transformation. And that's the task at hand, right? Because, being affected, like people who spend too much time on the internet, I do this for a job, and I am kind of disconnected from what I see and read here and what I joke about. I'm not really, it's just like watching a movie or TV show for me. It's not real, it's illusionary. And so this idea of Maya, right? The world is full of illusion. And so for me, I'm disconnected from it, detached, but many people are very upset and emotional about it and freaked out and fearful. And that isn't good at all, right? That isn't, spending too much of your time worried about the collapse and not enough time about preparing and adjusting yourself and your kids and your family for something that, can endure to help you endure the collapse of our system and the rise of your spiritual essence, your subtle bodies, your soul, and all these things to a higher level of consciousness. And so that's, that's what needs to be done. Like people have to, see the writing on the wall and say, all right, I have to, carve a path out for myself and whoever else to succeed, right? Because people have to succeed. There has to be pockets of the future. Otherwise, humanity is like screwed, right? It's over. And that might be the case. Who knows, right? But we're all supposed to, give it the old college try. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.